Hi, you guys. So I actually had to rejoin Twitter after being off of Twitter for like 4 years. I have not been on Twitter because I wasn't really using it to begin with, not really posting much. I was using other things more like Facebook at a time, and then now I'm more using Instagram and other websites to express my thoughts. So the idea is now that we gain more freedom, right? Once we're done with school and we can share our thoughts more freely once we go through the training and the incessant questions that we go through in schooling. You know, so I'm just doing a ranking video like other people have done. Today I won't, defend my own honor or my own major of English. Like sometimes in these ranking videos, like people always say English is the worst major, blah blah blah. You'll never be rich, whatever. Right? It's so hurtful and so insincere, right? And so inauthentic. But we go through it, right? And there's that market need, right, for teachers now and for healthcare workers, right? We all know. But today, it's not related to those, for Disney princesses. So let me share this and share the sound. So I'll do ranking for this. Okay, and I had to log into Twitter to use this website actually. So that's something, right? I want to do this ranking video. So these are Disney princesses. Oh, this is not. Let me move that. Okay. So these are Disney princesses. I'm just gonna explain like reasons why I rank them in a certain way, okay? I love all of them, right? I wish I had a sister, right, in my own life and to talk to and to share who I love and my crushes and I could use her to get to my boyfriend, right, if I had a sister. I don't have that, right? So I don't always have the belief in having altruistic surrogacy. If I had a husband where she wouldn't need to have money compensation for the surrogacy. But anyway, that's another topic for another time. Anyway, so SABCD. This is something I've seen before done, and I wanted to do it myself on YouTube. So I'll do this. So there's these princesses. So there's Mulan, Rapunzel, Elsa, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Anna. What's that one? It's Beauty and the Beast, Meredith from Brave, Moana, Sacagawea, I mean Pocahontas, Ariel from Little Mermaid, and Jasmine from Aladdin. I forget her name, but she's the Princess and the Frog movie, and then Cinderella from the movie Cinderella. So these are the princesses. I know some things about the movies. I know some movies more than others, better than others. So I'm just sending that as a disclaimer. Not saying I'm an expert on these movies. I'm not saying I was ever involved in the acting process or the production process of these movies. I'm just, trying to know we can talk about anything when we're English majors and we have that eye for perfection and the mouth for speaking to speak, what we think. So the eye for perfection, and when we're, talkative, we have that kind of talkative mouth, that chatterbox side to it. So, okay, let's see. What should I say? First to move first. So, I actually, if you saw my YouTube channel, right, I learned some of these princess songs, right? Funny, right? How that works, right? Everything is relevant with what I say and do. So, right, I love analogies and all that stuff. So, right, I soon will be actually the Rapunzel song, I See the Light. Not I Saw the Light, right? I Saw the Light is the song we did last week at church. I wasn't there though, right? I Saw the Light is more of a Cajun kind of blues song, but I See the Light, right? It's Rapunzel. You would know that if you know church music, right? So, let's see. Mulan, I did her song in a different arrangement than the one in the book. She, what Mulan goes through, right? There's the live action one and the animation one. In the live action one, Mulan actually, there's the bird, right, that can turn into a human more, and that's her backstory is more talked about in the live action one. She kind of has hesitation and ends up supporting Mulan in her decisive moment, and saves her life from the dagger that is thrown in her direction, or this weapon that's thrown in her direction. And even when she has mystical powers beyond her years, and she's like a prophetess and this carrier falcon or something, right? Some kind of bird, right? This that the Han leader relies on for knowledge and strategies, right? It relies on her many times, and then she is used. Her life is just destroyed so easily because, you know, the person that she was always supporting ends up killing her. It's that irony that's there, right? The irony that is essential for literature to understand, right? And so that's life for that bird lady, right? She dies. So I always remember everyone's name in the moment of recording. So yeah, and she's there, and you know, there's no cultural infringement or cultural appropriation, right? Because they're all mostly Asian people and Chinese people. So that's not a valid criticism to say, but you know, I can criticize criticisms that people say of, you know, the new Ariel live action movie that is talked about so much, right? Eventually, there's other issues people will say that are maybe culturally inaccurate too with Mulan live action one, but it's, you know, also there's the difference with not just the falcon bird, but also the way where the final battle takes place in the live action when it takes place in this construction site, if I recall correctly, and then in the animation when the final battle takes place in the palace itself, right? In the live action when they're like, oh, where is she? Mulan's like, where is he? He's not at the palace. And then she has to go somewhere and fight her way to get to where he is, right? So, and then he kind of uses the props and the scenery, right, with the construction site to kind of stop her, and she has to kind of use that too, the same things that he's using around use their surroundings against one another, right, in the construction site. So that's their final fight is happening like that way, trying to use their ninja style and their understanding of their conceptualization of how to process the world around them. Where, you know, and in Mulan, right, she's like, you know, having identity, you know, thing, and she, you know, like instead of Rapunzel, you know, Rapunzel, her hair is cut off by Eugene Fitzherbert, right? My name, oh, there I am, you know, at the end of the movie to separate her from Mother Gothel. But with Mulan, she cuts her hair early in the movie, right? That's the same symbol of, you know, separating from her identity. With Rapunzel, it's separating from her, you know, from being stuck in a tower, doing all her hobbies and only having her hobbies to do, her introverted hobbies, never having social cohesion or social affinity with anyone, right? And with Mulan, she's more, you know, outgoing and, you know, trying to be more outgoing and being sporty and outgoing. And so carrying buckets of water up mountains, right? Just, you know, going up a mountain just with your own body weight can be so difficult, right? But they do that kind of training, you know, carrying buckets of water over, you know, having that balance and that way, right, to carry it up a big place, doing that kind of thing, and, you know, using the bow and arrow, trying to hit the target, and she could eventually, you know, always hit the bullseye, like in both movies and things like that. You know, some parts are the same in both animation and live action, and, you know, it's interesting, and, you know, somehow Mulan just, you know, doesn't, she tries to, you know, prevent her father from being drafted into the war, so even usually only the men can go to war in a certain age, and then, you know, somehow that's, you know, the reason they built the Great Wall is to prevent invasions, and sometimes the Great Wall isn't, you know, depending on when this takes place, right? So the Great Wall was for that purpose, to prevent invaders, and it was made at some point in time with like Shi Huangdi, right, in that time period, and maybe before a little too with that, but the Great Wall was made, and her period is somewhere in Chinese history, right? So maybe before, after, so it's there, right? You can look it up, but that's something, right? The Great Wall was made for that purpose, to prevent invaders, and but eventually, right, when you make a wall, it eventually ends at some point in time. You can keep going left or right, eventually it'll end, right? But, you know, when they build it for so long, so many miles, but then it can seem impossible to just keep going left or right, right? And you can't go up, right? You can't go up, so you can only go left or right. That kind of, you know, puzzle of barrier, right? So, but that's what it was for, to prevent invaders. And just similar, right? I could mention just one meme I made that, you know, like our Great Wall to prevent a Mexico invasion or for migration, right? But then it wasn't completed, right? It was partially completed, and it was a lot of funding to make a wall, right? It's not just your backyard fence, right? That's like not that, it can be some money, but it's not like the wall for any to separate borders between nations. It's a lot more money than just your backyard fence, right? So think of it like that in perspective. So anyway, that's life, and people die crossing the Mexico border. People die trying to cross the Chinese border too, and even in the construction of that wall. So anyway, so Mulan was like, part of that, and she was wondering, oh, what should she do, right? And who, I like just that I can still play that even if I played it for YouTube. I can still play for other events and functions if people want to hear Mulan for their girl's birthday party or something, right? That's something I liked, and I heard it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, she has the sheet music too, and right, Van Nguyen, she has that music, and I saw one other person did it on YouTube, so I was, I guess, the third person to do it, and I like to hear, that was just a goal and also a challenge to embark on that path to learn the song this past year or so, just practicing here and there, and sometimes it sounds the same in the music, different measures, but it's actually, there's sometimes slight differences with what is actually played. But it can do all these arpeggios, and it does many arpeggios, like down and different things, right? It's, very flowing and like a river, and it's slow in the beginning and slow at the end, and then the middle does like jumping and kind of going down to the bass notes and then back up and down to the bass and back up in the alto tenor region and going back down to the bass region with the left hand. But you have to, that's part is, if I don't really always memorize now music, but I can look and still somehow know, looking for both hands, and then when it's jumping it can be difficult when you can't just feel it, and sometimes you don't even need to look if you know it's right there, and then other times you need to, it's like jumping, you have to kind of know the notes and then know where you are. That's something to keep in mind. But yeah, Mulan. So for Mulan, right, and a little bit in comparison to Rapunzel, but Mulan I think is good. I think, right, Moana is also an Asian, right, kind of Polynesian area, and so is Jasmine, and different regions of the world. Anyway, Mulan, with what I said, and she's, what else, like, could I say, there's that, I think, avalanche that happens in both versions, and somehow that at that point, right, it seems like that's the end of their path, right, when the avalanche happens, and people maybe didn't make it, and they think they have to stop, right, when there's the avalanche, but they have to somehow keep going, and when the avalanche just destroys their hopes, right, Mother Nature can't really prevent that, right. So that's Mulan, right, and so sometimes she has to hide who she is, and we might get close to knowing that she's a woman, and for her identity, and then it's like that way where she just doesn't know, right, who she really is. And Mulan, just what else is, realizing she can work just as hard as any man, and she proves that she can earn the same salary and have the same qualifications as any man, right, that it's really important for women's rights, right, to know that, for all women, right. So she just wanted people to know she could not necessarily want to usurp their authority, but to just have the admiration to be a man, right. When you want to be someone else, it's not always to take over, but to have admire that person, to be them, and to want to know what it's like, and to not just think it's easier to be the other gender, but to really try to see what it's like on the other side, and see she can have that same qualification, the same admiration for them, right. And so she just wanted to serve, right, in a noble cause, altruistic cause, to support her father, and he was so weak and so tired, and she was just trying to bring honor to her family, right. And then somehow, even when it was against the rules, right, and she did that, right, and if it was against the rules, she felt like her heart, her conscience overrode, right, rules of her country, right. So okay, so ending on that note, let's give her, I did her music too. Let's give this A, okay. Okay, so A, that's one. So okay, so let's move on. Okay, maybe Rapunzel. So Rapunzel, right, is there and Tangled. There's always, I know, these grim folklore, and there's not, people always criticize how it's not authentic to the grim folklore. And I've had a teacher who has since being teaching us has since changed her last name to Grimm. So I think, she might be related to that person, the author of the grim folklore, right? And as if they have the same last name, they're related, if not herself, but her husband, right? I don't keep track of everyone's whereabouts and what they do in life, but I just remembered she changed at some point her last name to Grimm, the same as the Grimm series, right? Grimm is like the author of all these kinds of many of these fairy tales. I don't know about all of them, but some of them, right? So that's something, and they usually have the darker undertone if you look into them. But if you're just a child, right, and you're watching these videos, then you'll have to look into that, with your mother and father if you want to know the real stories behind these Grimm stories, right? But yeah, Rapunzel, right, is right. She, like I said, she has her introverted hobbies, and and with Mulan previously, right, she's needing to do all these extroverted hobbies, being with everyone else and everyday life, and she could be found out just from the very beginning, right? Mulan felt like she should be found out from the very beginning. She stepped foot in the encampment, right? And yet she could still keep going a little bit longer because the movie had to keep going, right? If she just found out, and it's like, oh, that's the end of the movie, right? Okay, bye, go home, right? So yeah, Rapunzel, she had these more introverted hobbies that she had to work on and develop these introverted skills, and yet somehow she intuitively knew, right? She was part of that royal lineage, right? And she would make these floating lanterns, and maybe she saw them once briefly before, and somehow it was still ingrained firmly in her memory, right? And just always brushing her long hair for hours and hours, and just having little chameleon Pascal, right? And that's really, relevant because Pascal, right, was a kind of, thinker, right? And I think, right, it's kind of philosopher, or not to say philosopher or artist, right, kind of person. So that person, so, or both, right? So, that's life where eventually, yeah, she had her Pascal, right? And so match her. And she kind of was, reluctant to leave the tower, right? And Flynn Rider, he found she was actually the jewel, right? That he was kind of on the wanted posters, and Flynn Rider, right? And Eugene Fitzherbert. And he had the weird, Eugene Fitzherbert's meant to be kind of pejorative, right? As to just like Eugene Krabs and SpongeBob, right? It's meant to be that kind of funny name like I have, but I can still like my name, and I don't always want to change my name that my parents gave me, but actually can think of other names that sound like Eugene that could change to for the opposite gender. Some names are like that to change easily, and just linguistically it's so easy to do that sometimes. So it should be the same with biology, right? So just knowing anything about language, right, to know that they have ethnic associations and gender associations, right? So yeah, just with Rapunzel, right, it's just she was there working, and she felt like she was being really productive, and then she realized there's just a larger world out there, and she just had her frying pan, kind of not really knowing all the social cues and norms because she lived in her tower and just isolated life, and she didn't really know how to interact with people, and she kind of was so defensive, right? With Eugene Fitzherbert, when they just kind of were meeting and interacting, she could be really defensive, right, at any remark, right? That's typical of people who are isolated, always to be defensive, right? Could see that with Rapunzel, so just the psychology behind that, right? So, she would go on, and, I don't remember every detail in between, but I watched it before a while ago. So, yeah, but then she can see the floating lanterns putting, flowers in her hair, like little girls like to do too, to be like her. And, sometimes, right? uh, people do that today too, right? You can see just real people doing the floating lanterns, right, in different regions and cultures doing that for different purposes, and you know, I don't know, just like when you let go of a balloon, right? Where will it end up, right? We don't know always. So it can be that, active pollution that no one actually sees, right, where it goes. So not on the ground, but in the sky, it goes up there like a balloon, just like floating lanterns. You think, oh, it'll go all the way to the moon or outer space, right? Right. Honestly, so right, and then the Rapunzel is there, and she can finally realize, right, that conflict that she had. She wanted to see the floaters, and then the movie keeps going, right? So that's one conflict that's resolved, but then she realized that those floating lanterns were a signal for her to find her, right? And she didn't know that at first, and she was so hesitant and reluctant to get to know Flynn Rider and to know her own identity. And then Flynn Rider kind of was finding out that before she did, right, that who she was, and just that way where Flynn Rider would realize that they would be pregnant and do an abortion. Just joking, right? So, right, Flynn Rider was there for Rapunzel, and then she realized, oh, she is, and then she kind of looked at her parents, wondering, did she really recognize who they were and who she was, or even when the moment of truth was there. So Flynn Rider ended up, I think, cutting her hair, right, to separate her from Mother Gothel, and then this Mother Gothel kind of shriveled up in like a hypertonic cell, and she couldn't live any longer, right, without the hair that was giving her life beyond typical lifespan, right? That increased longevity was what she could gain from her hair, right? Just like other Disney villains can gain other talents and gifts from the main characters and then use them in that way for their own purpose, right? So that was one, right? And so then she looks, short hair, looks like a lesbian, right? Right, Rapunzel, right? And that's good, right? Too. So her short hair, so yeah, so that's something. Oh my god, something, right? So that's something. I think Rapunzel's good. She's kind of, uh, Mulan is more of a fierce character, and she's fierce and not really so innocent. She knows how the world works and operates, right? Mulan knows how things happen in the world, and that it's a man's world, right? So she felt like that, and she knew how the world operated. She wasn't gonna be so easily fooled, right? Mulan was kind of different than Rapunzel, more fierce and knowing how the world worked, and she had to try to outsmart people to just do things and then try to just do the same work as everyone, all the other men, right? Do the same work as them and not be treated better or more superior or given an easy shot at life, right? She had to try to work just as hard as everyone else, right? And that fierce quality. And Rapunzel was more, gentle, and she just didn't want to hurt a fly, right? And even her little Pascal chameleon, she would not hurt a fly, and she never would want to even separate from the person who was having this parasitic relationship to her, or perhaps commensalism biology to think maybe she didn't wasn't harmed or benefited from her relationship with Mother Gothel, or perhaps she was having, you can think of it as a parasitic relationship too, and that was there, you know, and so it's that way. So I think in that way, Rapunzel can make it see. Okay, let's see. Okay, so that's something, and then there's Elsa, right, from Frozen. So Frozen has two princesses, so the sisters of Elsa, right? They were like, I saw the second one too, but I forget that one. I remember the first one more. I saw that further behind my memory, but um, yeah, just right in the one in the movies, right? Elsa is out there, and it's one of those YouTube videos that have over 1 billion views, right? Like just like Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa, their "See You Again" song for what's it called? Fast and Furious, I think, movie. And then Gangnam Style, Psy's Gangnam Style. Those three are ones that I know that have over 1 billion views. There's other ones too, right over on YouTube, and there's 8 billion people on the planet, and I guess there's some people that haven't even seen those videos, but there's a good chunk of people who have seen those. When it's a couple of billion people who have seen those YouTube videos, right? And for music, right? Music tends to have higher views, and people listen again and again. And she can support the artists by buying the music on streaming platforms. So you know, it's there. And so Elsa, she kind of, is scared at first, right? She doesn't want to build a snowman. She doesn't want to do anything in the world, and she just feels like she's a monster, like in Frankenstein, right? And so she feels like she's a monster, even when she can make beautiful things too. But the ice can be beautiful snowflake, or can be the frigid spires, can make these spires that can pierce people too. And doesn't know if she'll make a beautiful snowflake or a beautiful snowman, or if she'll just forget that creation. And then Anna ends up being, kind of closer friends with Olaf instead of Elsa, right? And when she makes something like a snowman, it seemed Anna was closer friends with Olaf, right? So, and she was trying to, like, you know, just not knowing if ice is needed in the world, or if she's needed too, if her power is useless or if it is important, right? She doesn't know. And then she goes, that scene where she goes up and then making her ice castle, right? Then she, at first, when she was younger, she doubted her abilities and if they were for good or for bad. And now she just really makes this ice castle, and then, or, and then just no guests are in her castle, and she's alone, right? And she was also fierce kind of in that way, right? Like Mulan, and she was kind of there, and somehow, right, it's, can be seen as a real region in Europe, perhaps, where they were, and their parents, right, they became orphans. Both their parents died, and they ended up, right, just like the Titanic, right? The ship sank. So at some point they showed just a brief moment of that, right? So somehow, right, they didn't know, right, for Elsa how she could continue, right? So somehow, right, Elsa was there, and so, right, Elsa just didn't know, right, how to right, and she doubted the bond between herself and her sister that would be realized in the final moment when she was in not just the pretty ice castle where she could see everything around her. She had more of a vantage point in the top of the ice castle, but then when she could see Anna approaching her from as she was at the top of the staircase, right? And then she would just go in the main ballroom, right? And then Anna was there, and her ice castle kind of was broken just from even having just one guest, and then her whole ice castle collapsed. So Anna, right, and she had these large snowmen, right? Other creatures she made that were larger than Olaf and not as friendly as Olaf, right? That was what was in her heart before to create Olaf, right? That gentle snowman. And she made these harsher snowmen who tried to ward off Olaf and Anna, right, to stop them from approaching. And the caribou or moose creature, right? And Sven. So, right, somehow, right, Elsa would wonder, right, and somehow, right, Anna at first was just with the wrong person, right, to be with, and then Sven was, I guess, in the second movie more, they were able to be together, right? And so somehow Anna just, she was thinking, she wasn't just, wanting to have her own life goals accomplished. She wanted also to have her life goals too. And then she felt sad, and then, then in the moment when she could see really all these words he was saying to her, and that love is an open door, and then love is actually, right, a closed door, and she had to realize that, and that, she just felt so lost and blinded by her love for that one prince from a different country, I guess. So, right, so Anna just didn't know, and then she could see it even in the midst of the blizzard, right? She could still see her sister, Elsa, right? That she was still that girl, right, long ago, with keeping her gloves on and not wanting to share that, thinking that would stop her ice power. Right, Anna could see, right, Elsa was still, right, just the same little girl, and inside, right, in that moment in the beginning, just still wondering if her powers can be for good or bad. And right, right, even when Anna didn't know, right, she didn't even have any powers, right? And so she just had to put herself right in front of her sister and to stop that. And, right, it's sad in that movie, right? And that movie, so and she just froze and then unfreeze later. And, right, so that kind of way. Anyway, so right, that's something, right? Anyway, Elsa, I think we can just put maybe see too because she was maybe Rapunzel was gullible, right, and just acquiescent to the Gothel, and Elsa was just confused, right, and lost, and because the suffering of her sister to be frozen in time. Maybe she could say she has the best powers, but somehow she needed, right, a mentor figure for her powers. She didn't have that, right, to guide her how to use her ice power. So eventually it became too dangerous, right, to control, and she didn't have a mentor figure. So that's just something, right? And so then we can look at the next one, Sleeping Beauty. So that one, I remember more the live action one, the animation one. So Sleeping Beauty, right? She's kind of like the like Angelina Jolie, I think Sleeping Beauty version. I did this. I saw this like one too, and like they have their little fairy world in the live action one, and more of that, and somehow they have those CGI fairies in live action ones. So yeah, just in their world, and somehow the girl is there, and she actually is like the daughter, right, of the Maleficent fairy. I think in some way it's like that, right? And kind of not maybe the parent, but just she's like put in that world. I think she's like put in the same kind of world too, and she likes to be there at one of the movies. She's like there in the world, right? So, right, she's in that kind of world too, and then perhaps parents related or some way, right? Or just adopted family in one way. So it's like that where, somehow, right, Maleficent at first is there, and then she kind of, it's that they do, she does mention touching the sleeping spindle, and that makes her go to sleep, right, in Sleeping Beauty, and, there's this battle, right, and that happens, and then, Sleeping Beauty, the Maleficent is like fighting and with everyone and things like that, and it's something I don't remember. I don't remember all these prisoners as well as others, but for Sleeping Beauty, right, it's something right there going through, right, and somehow there's the sleeping spindle, and then I think, yeah, just right, and how they just they go through that way, and just there's some, I forget who's the main, there's some villain right in there, and then I think in one movie maybe Maleficent's the villain, then maybe in the second movie she's like not a villain or something, I think like that, right? So Maleficent is not always the villain, and then sometimes, I think in the second one it talks about her backstory, Maleficent, right, with other creatures that are just like her, and right, these other flying creatures that are there somewhere else too, that are just like her. It goes to that backstory, right, in the second movie more. So yeah, stuff like that. So I think with Sleeping Beauty, I already talked. I don't want to talk too much about everything. Sleeping Beauty, I think it's interesting how the villain can do better and just put a beat behind. Okay, and then there's Snow White. So Snow White is They do. I'm not sure. They did different versions of that, right? And so for Snow White, I can think of yeah, just singing and birds can go on her shoulder, right, or whatever, right? And then she is gentle with nature and the plants and the dwarves that are there, and somehow she can find a way to be friends with everything. And then, you know, there's the lady with the apple, things like that. I think Snow White is just one I'm not so familiar with, but it's one of them, right? And there's in the different versions, there's like different queens that are there, and the Ice Queen fights with the Golden Queen, and then I can use crows and gold, and then the Ice Queen doesn't make it, right? If you didn't see it, the nice world of you. The Ice Queen fights, right, her sister, kind of. So, and Snow White is not those people, but they're part of, they're kind of both seen as villains at first, and then the two villains fight each other. The Gold Queen, kills her sister, so and she bathes in gold, and she's the one that says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? Who's the fairest of them all?" She's the one that says that in the mirror. She kind of becomes the mirror too, right? And then she, can be these crows or ravens and the blackbirds, and then will disappear and reappear where she is, right? And that kind of magic too, and the grim. That's definitely a grim folklore one. No, I don't think all these are, but yeah, that one's one. And then, so somehow the Ice Queen, they have this battle, and then the ice, she gets pierced through her spires, right? They have ice spires, like Elsa too, right? And there's the Ice Queen and Snow White too in another version to it. And they both think they know what's best for Snow White, kind of, right? And somehow it's kind of also like Alice in Wonderland, right? Two different queens. Like in Alice in Wonderland, the Red Queen, the White Queen. And then Snow White, there's the White, there's the Gold Queen and the Blackbirds, and there's the Ice Queen. So it's interesting to see that and how the battle happened. And well, Snow White is the only one, right, that can defeat the Gold Queen. She's the only one, just like in Lord of the Rings. That one princess lady is the fair lady that can stab the people that wear those dark masks, right? Only the rings that girl could do that. One of them, right? There's probably more than one of them, but she could, I think, one of them. So with the those dark Death Rider people, right, that try to find whoever has the ring, they can sense who has the ring. That's one of the people there. There's many different. There's the orcs and the Smeagol and the spider. There's so many different villains they go through in Lord of the Rings. And those Death Riders are one of them that, in the midst of the elephants driving Lord of the Rings, they can stop them. And so she can, when the, I don't know if everyone's saying, so maybe you can stop one of the people wearing those like Scream masks, like in the Scream movies, right? Those people wearing those kind of masks, and she could stab one of them, and just like how only Snow White can kill the Gold Queen, right? So anyway, that's something comparing different movies to think of it as in that way. Snow White is there. It's really kind of scary movie. Some of the versions. So anyway, please B or so. Okay. I don't want to give more than D or F. I haven't given an S yet. Okay. That's something to think about. Maybe I'll reorganize. Rapunzel, I don't want to give a C either. But here and then I can reorganize now. We're just talking and then which one's this one? Maybe A and then we'll put A and then okay. Right, I'm so generous. Oh my god. Anyway, there's a few more. Okay, so Anna, we mentioned already some things, so I don't have to go see everything again. So Anna is there, and so she's, she is, sad. She's sad she has no powers, but then she's even more sad when she is, Elsa doesn't like her powers, kind of. So she doesn't. seem like she has gratitude or knowledge of how to use her powers, and then Anna just her only happiness is to be like a regular human, to find love, right? Like any girl wants to usually, right? So that's what she wanted, to be like other girls, and then she could see, oh, Elsa just wasn't having that same motivation or the same inclination to seek that, the typical thing of that people want, to be married with someone. And then Anna realized that even when she was seeking out that, like any other girl would, and then she just realized it was an illusion, right? When that man, the prince, just wanted to destroy Elsa this whole time, right? To blame Elsa as a cursed child for the reason why the ship sank, perhaps, or maybe we'll wonder what was the reason for him to do that. Blaming her for the ship sinking and the king and queen dying, and perhaps he wanted to take, control of the kingdom that the siblings had, just like that co-ruler, they could be co-rulers, right? It's just like with King William and Queen Mary, right? It could be that William and Mary College, right, in Virginia. So they live in Prince William County, and so like they could be co-rulers, but mostly King William had the power, in English history, right? So Anna and Elsa could rule together, right? Mostly in the second war in some way. So it's like that, where just Anna was wondering if she'd have that life goal, and then she realized it was just an illusion, right? Because he was going to do that to his sister. So even if he was nice to her, but he was not nice to her sister. So in the final moments of the movie, so then she realized that she loved her sister, right, more than she loved him. So okay, so that's something. And then maybe Anna could be too with her sister. Okay. And this is Beauty and the Beast, right? It's confusing, right? Sleeping Beauty and Beauty and the Beast. It's like, oh, that happened before. Oh yeah. So Beauty and the Beast is also a region, maybe in France or somewhere in the world, Europe. So Beauty and the Beast is there, and I saw Emma Watson in that one, right? So Emma Watson, right, she can do not just Harry Potter, she can do other movies too, right? She's not, just tied to one, franchise. So, so with Sleeping Beauty, she's, Gaston is that one person, the villain character, that like another prince character that's a villain in the previous one. So he's kind of, he thinks he can be with, Belle, right? With Belle, thinking he can be with her, and then Belle just wants to be with the Beast, right? He's all alone in his castle, right? So Belle is there, and and Ariana Grande and John Legend have their song, right? You can hear on YouTube, and eventually I'll have this one actually too on my YouTube channel. It's eventually this year will be there. Like the second, Rapunzel one will be there too. I don't know all these songs in the Disney book I bought. I will not get my full money's worth, because I know in terms of music we don't, because we don't usually play every song in the books we buy. But that's life. We put our losses right where they are. So that's life. But I'll do this one, and then there eventually will be there. And I add a little bit extra, not just what's written, but I add some extra. It's a possibility with the music may flow a little bit longer. Just hold it a long time. Yeah. So with Beauty and the Beast, right, she's there and she's kind of wondering, right, oh, what can she do, right, with, she's a kind of bookworm person, and Gaston kind of likes her, she's a bookworm, and then just in her town, she doesn't want to be there anymore, and then she wants to go on an adventure, and then just somewhere she ends up being drawn to the castle, and then she didn't always know what was there at first, and then somehow they had CGI, there's the teacups, I think, in the animated one that's there, but the different ways where she's, then Gaston and the Beast, I think, fight in the end. Somehow Belle is seeing there's two people who love her, right? So that kind of love triangle that's there. So somehow she just doesn't know, right, what to do. So anyway, so that's Beauty and the Beast. So you can think of that. Beauty and the Beast. Something we'll see. Oh, Meredith and Brave is that new one, red-haired girl, right? Have representation, just like Ariel, right? They have red hair. Right, it's a connection. Oh my god, that is so good to know. Meredith and Ariel have red hair. Right, their physical attributes, their probably recessive trait or something, right? In biology, right? It's part of it too in biology, the hair color. So it's something there. I don't know for sure. It's one of, don't quote me, right? It's there, but if you need to, whatever. It's like that's some trait, right? To have. And Meredith, you know, she's more in like kind of Scotland part, right? They wear those kilt or skirt kilts or something, right? Those kind of uniforms, and the mother, right, is there, and somehow her husband and some of her children, I think they all turn into bears, right? And some people, right, they turn into bears, and so when there's the other bear, Mordor, or some, I'm not sure if that's Lord of the Rings or it's some kind of similar language, but like one of them, there's a one bear that's worse, and that's the villain, one bear, and there's these will-o-wisp, right? The kind of mythology will-o-wisps that appear then disappear and keep guiding her to this kind of monument area, right? The will-o-wisps, part of the movie, and right, it's also a move you can do in Pokemon, will-o-wisp, to inflict burn damage on people every so often. Yeah, will-o-wisp, and then Meredith is there. She just, you know, is an archer, right? She's an archer specifically, and to do that, and so she's more like a warrior, huntsman, and archer skills she had. And you know, there's in the beginning, they're trying to figure out who can marry her, right? And she ends up, I think she doesn't want to be with any of them, and in some ways, right? So a rebellious and not wanting to be submissive kind of girl, and wanted to be more outgoing girl, and not ready for that. And she had to solve the curse of their heritage first, or something, right? So she has her bow and arrow and stuff like that. So it's like that where Meredith just, you know, Merida, right, something, right, is there, and then she's going through that, right, process, and then yeah, sometimes they don't know if it's the good bear or the bad bear, and then like where it's going, right, they don't know. And the little bears, her little siblings, right, turn into bears, and then she wonders, right, and I forget some of this, I saw it before, like something, right. Anyway, this was interesting too. So this one, maybe it's good right here. And then Moana, right? I went to Hawaii before with my family. That was nice. She was like from the area of Polynesia or somewhere, right? And then the main villain is a volcano, right? The volcano, the land itself, it tries to stop her, right? And so she has this kind of conflict with her own identity. The volcano that is sending all the lava out at her, and she has to, you know, find out about where she is, right? And so Moana, this one I put already, but you know, here I can play for a little girl's party too or something. But you know, that's life, right? But Moana is just somehow very just she could find all these ancient boats before, right, at some point. Ancient boats that were made, and right, different kinds of boats they used to travel from island to island, and right, let's see that part of it and learn how to sail and do other things like everyone else. And yeah, I don't remember everything either this one, but it's something, right? Okay. Yeah, just somehow. Right, so Right, this is something too. So more here too. Right, then Pocahontas, that's what I did. Sometimes I pause for the music, but to turn pages. It's mostly there in this background noise, but it's there, and I tried for that one, two, Colors of the Wind, one, and Pocahontas, right, is there, and she's, American history, right, instead of all the European ones, right, the princesses, she's in America, just in the early stages of American history, right, and she just, you know, marries eventually Thomas Rolfe, right, and Rolfe is one character in the Fire Emblem video game too, who's an archer. But like, yeah, Pocahontas is just trying to be with the, be a bridge between the settlers and the Native Americans, and she's there and trying to teach them about the lessons from nature, and to think of nature as a brother or sister, or to think of nature more. We can, own Earth. That kind of irony she says at the end of her song is, we can own Earth, right? The Earth is the soil, right? We can own Earth, have it. We can put this Earth in a box or in a glass case, the Earth. But all we will own is Earth, right? Until we, how to paint with the colors of the wind, right? And it's kind of that paradox, or doesn't wonder what it means, right? This wind we think has no color, right, at all, and just in the air. Like, we wonder if it is, we can't see always our breath unless it's very cold out or something, right? We don't want to see the colors of the wind, right? It's just there in the world, right? It's kind of, we wonder, it kind of can stump us to think what is really colors of the wind, and it's like that where it's that, metaphysical understanding of how the world works. Like, oh, when people say things that don't seem to make sense at first, and then can be really profound, right? So yeah, so right, and she's with those colonists, and they go through this journey, and it's amazing how they could find their way, right, when they didn't have GPS, and some people wouldn't make it here, and then would disappear, right, and be a forgotten colony or something, right? And some people, they bring people, and they don't always know, right, when more people will be sent, right, to where they are. Somehow, just in wilderness, we have all this development now. Today we see, and even still, we'll make new buildings, right? But eventually, it's just can be so unfathomable and unbelievable how we could have nothing and then have all this now, and trying to make things better, right, for the Native Americans who are here today. And some of them still prefer to be segregated on their reservations, but they don't always have the same resources or amenities as we do, right? In their places, they can, enter with COVID, people are impacted, right, in many ways. So somehow natives, like I had one, I think, friend in middle school, like her name was Cheyenne, like her first name Cheyenne, and that was one Native American tribe, Cheyenne tribe. So there was one person I knew from school who was Native American, I think. Yeah, Cheyenne, I remember her. Like middle school, I think in Manassas, back in Manassas. So it was something, right? I remember that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so that's something that Pocahontas is just, there's so many tribes, and they could trade with each other, and tribes, and wonder, they had more of a matriarchy, right? With Native Americans have a matriarchy. Much of our history in Europe and America, and more of the patriarchy, right? You learn that with feminism, and just a basic understanding of religion too, how the Bible is many times patriarchal, and we will quote the Genesis part about for gender or other things, but just throughout the book is very patriarchal, right? That's how history became, and we can see that. And so the Native Americans had matriarchy for a while, and a woman could do arts and crafts, but also could make bigger decisions too, right? So sometimes that's life where Pocahontas was there, right? She was just trying not to do that, and she could go to another continent too, like in England or so, and to England, and we could have a Thomas Roche, she could have a mixed child, right? Like I am too, so I can relate to that. And she could have a mixed child, so and other people were like her too throughout the past next hundreds of years. There was Spanish people and the indigenous people, and then American people and Native Americans. It could be like that. And American white people with black people even too, and then the black people would just be property after that point, even if they had a white father or so, right? So different mestizos and mulattoes, right? So that were there, and so okay, so Pocahontas. There's okay, right. There's four more. So okay, so Ariel, right, from Little Mermaid. This one something to have done some music for that, and I'll be in one article on Medium talking about her, for he's talking just about idioms, phrases, right? With her, just Little Mermaid is redhead, right? Like Merida, right? That is the only similarity in the whole universe. Joking. You know, Little Mermaid, she is gonna inherit her father's Triton. Her father's not, I don't think they call him Poseidon or Neptune, but like in the SpongeBob movie, they mention one of those names, right? Neptune, I think. Neptune and SpongeBob movie with the Fleet of Atlantis, right? Where his head is bald, and then he's worried about that, and his daughters, and SpongeBob, like his daughter's like saying, "Oh, why you're worried about that?" And then he ends up having no bald head because he gets a bucket on his head. And Plankton, right? Plankton is that villain in SpongeBob. He wants to have mind control over everyone. The buckets over their heads, and the chum bucket, right? That no one wants to eat at, and then everyone eventually gets the chum bucket on their head, right? So the SpongeBob movie is so that kind of undersea world, right? That's in SpongeBob too. So with Little Mermaid, she's there, and at first she doesn't want to. With comparison to other ones, right? Her father is also powerful, like another movie is like Frozen. Their father's like royalty and Merida, and I think Sleeping Beauty more. I mean, Beauty and the Beast. She's more of a commoner, more. Pontus is his daughter, is kind of a chief, and things like that. And Mulan, Mulan is actually, some of these princesses are actually commoners and not normal plebeians than patricians. Mulan is more of a commoner too, family, and some of these have royal or some castle or palace. Some of these princesses are more like commoners, so at first, right? So you know, so Little Mermaid, she's Ariel, right? She's there, and then there's that movie now talked about, and I didn't see it yet, but I think it's not out yet, but just the trailer or something. Maybe it is, I forgot. And so the Ariel is just, Prince Eric is her, Prince Charming, and then she wants to, just like the genie with Aladdin, right? You get a wish, but you don't get the wish as you would want it to be, right? You end up there's a change of phrase and something you want, and then you'll lose something that's valuable too. And she lost her voice, and she could no longer sing and no longer talk. And Ursula, I don't remember everything, and Ursula just is the octopus, part human, part octopus. It's like in Maleficent, she's kind of part this wyvern kind of creature and part human, right? Part Barbarian, part wyvern creature too. Dragon, wyvern, So, you know, like Mulan, that was one going with the bird. The live action one, part bird, part human, right? So sometimes there's that there to make it more magical and something. There's some, Ariel's, and she loses her ability to talk, but kind of, right? So then, but she can walk. She wanted to have legs, right? She thought she wouldn't cute. Prince Eric wouldn't like her if she didn't have legs like any other person. So sometimes, in that way, so eventually, right, she could get her voice back, I'm sure, but for a part of the time she didn't have it. And what, life, you need to, we do need to walk to get places many times. Not everyone can, though. Some people make things accessible, right, in the curbs and things, but in different vehicles can be accessible for the who are in wheelchairs or who are paralyzed in some way. And but with Ariel, she just doesn't have her voice, and she realizes she can walk, but now Prince Eric won't know what she's really thinking. And sometimes we feel like that too. We can feel silenced or censored like that way. When we have mobility, we can go places, right, to walk, and sometimes any kind of mobility, whether driving or just having the mobility to move in life in a way, to move to different places and different ideas. She can move and then be places, but she just won't be able to comment on anything right around her if she uses her voice. So, so that's something she has the crab person with her as her sidekick, just like any of these Disney princesses have some kind of little animal with them alongside them, right? So with Lion King having toucan and the warthog, and right, so I think with Little Mermaid, it's more two, and then it must be done. And then, okay, with Jasmine and Aladdin, it's not the live action one. It's gonna be something to think about. They go in the cave at one point and see the genie, and so right, this one is there's also with Princess and the Frog. They both have kind of magician and male magician as the villain, right? I don't remember so much about Princess and the Frog, but Aladdin, it's Jafar, and then Jasmine. Aladdin is, kind of the beggar, poor person, and then, well, maybe like a scene from Romeo and Juliet when they're in the balcony kind of thing, and Jasmine just be drawn to Aladdin, right? And so somehow she's there, and then they're both just wondering, right, like that, and somehow, Aladdin have this magic carpet, and they go, and yeah, and so eventually they wonder, right, where's somehow, right, Jafar at the end kind of also will have the genie ask for his wishes, and that it doesn't end up, using them in the right way, right? So somehow you have to find to stop Jafar, right? And I think putting Jafar in the lamp or so. Right? And Jafar ends up kind of being a genie too, right? Or something. He wanted to be that. Kind of his thinking of the loophole for life and for having more power. So, okay, let's see what Justin, all this. Okay. I think Naomi Scott, and she's mixed too, but she can sing nice speechless song, right? Just in here, and then so with Princess and the Frog, right? It's a story we've heard that turning into a frog, and then right, so eventually, right, just kind of that kind of Louisiana Cajun, like Harlem Renaissance kind of feeling, that kind of area and atmosphere, right? somehow she's there, and I don't remember some of these Italian princes much. So I saw these movies at some point, but it's so far away. So yeah, she's right. Somehow I forget some of these. So, but she's good too, right? I think. Right. Over here, and then Cinderella, right? Just know some of it, and step sisters and stepmother, and she's always cleaning, servant work. I think some of the Princess and the Frog, right? She's kind of commoner, right? And just working kind of not most glamorous job first, right? Both of them, I think. So yeah, and their life takes a detour, right? When you have new opportunities. So in Cinderella, you hear about the ball happening, and then she wonders if she'll be ready to go, and then her fairy godmother makes her look all nice, and then there's that controversy over, wearing that corset, right? Wearing a corset that was sometimes seen in media, social media, about if that is too restricting for the waist and make it too slim waist, and how people have perfectionist body image issues or standards, right? So, I think Emma Watson didn't want to wear that, but in Cinderella, the actress wore it. So there's that way. People have different ideas about it. Something they were. They just like they would tighten the waist, they would tighten your feet too, right? Like in Cinderella, kind of foot binding practice in Asia and in Europe, I guess too. So foot binding to keep your feet really tiny, and even when you put so much pressure, it ends up being really changing the appearance of your toes and making them point more inward, right? So that's how people would do that, right? That kind of self-torture that was inflicting the kind of dark side of that. Maybe there's dark sides in any of these things too, I'm sure. With Cinderella, that's one, right? And so it does, you can change how your body looks just with the pressures you exert on it, right? So just like your feet too. So they would do that, and they wondered who could be good for the prince, and then she could end up having the main dance with him, and they're all watching her. So you were invited, and it's kind of like the Bachelor or Bachelorette, right? Cinderella felt like that, right? With all the different people there. There's only one man, kind of, the prince, and all the other girls, right? Like the Bachelor, right? So Cinderella could be like that, right? So she just is so careless and frivolous, right? And she's, loses, can't even, most people, we can't even, when you stand on glass, it'll break, right? But she somehow has that magical point, not just a fairy godmother, but just the existence of glass slippers is really unrealistic, right? And adds the magical quality of it, right? To have clear glass slippers, most people can have clear shoes, right, too, but glass, you don't advise using that, right, for your feet, so get splinters. So but it's just something they mention somehow. Human language is versatile, can just mention any idea in the world and just in conversation. So yeah, that's something glass slippers is not really realistic at all, but it's there, and she could drop it, and then the clock struck 12, right, for her, so she had a curfew, right? That was midnight is a really late curfew, though, in realistic ways to think about. It's much earlier for people's curfew. She needed not just the kind of posh etiquette, think of curfews and thinking of chaperones, right? To need chaperones she didn't have there, and chaperone and curfew, those things that children need, and at a certain point you just go wherever you want to go, right? No one always knows where you're going when you're driving or in life, right? And you don't always have a curfew, you can stay up all night long, right, after a certain age, right? So these restrictions that we have as children and teenagers don't want to stay forever, right? So yeah, she had that kind of curfew, and didn't have really chaperone besides her fairy godmother and step siblings that were not nice to her, right? So, and then yeah, they were not nice to her, and it's ironic, right, that she ended up being the most favored of all the women there at the ball. So when people were not nice to her, right? somehow that's who he liked most, really, who he liked most. So then she just lost him, and that's when he had to go through all the process trying to figure out whose foot would it fit, right? And in reality, right, there's only so many shoe sizes. I'm sure someone else could fit in her shoes, right? Also, that kind of plot hole to for realistic purposes, right? That people can publish the book, but you can always see where have logical reasoning. There's many always plot holes in any book in the world, right? For realistic purposes, right? Not just for redundancy or for clarity, but for realistic purposes too. And that way, right? So, but that's something right in there. So, wondering, of course, someone fits her shoe size in reality, right? With all the people in the world, right? But they try to find who can fit her shoe, right? Right. So, yeah. So somehow Cinderella just will find the that way and maybe live happily ever after, right? So she just had to hide who she was and just take off her sparkly gown and go back into her servant clothes afterward and pretend like she never was there, right? And some people live that kind of life sometimes, and they wonder if they're really able to have a good time in life, or you just have to go back to being a servant, right? She could feel like a servant, and then she wasn't. Just that for one day, one night, evening, she could feel like a princess, right? Just for one night, and then the rest of her life, she had to just go back to being a servant. She felt like just for one time. Then the prince just tried everything to put out notices and for people to try out the shoe, right? And just like trying out the sword, right? For King Arthur, who can pull the sword, right? And pull out the sword. Only one of noble blood or whatever, right? Noble ideas or something. Pull out the sword, just like only the real princess can place her shoe in the right shoe size. And with there's only so many shoe sizes right that exist in reality, but people share things with their siblings all the time. They fit just well, right? So, just with siblings and many people too, right? But it's that way. So anyway, Cinderella is there too. So right here. Okay, I didn't give this to this, so this is the final. Okay, look at these. So let me see if I want to rearrange before we go. So yeah, so I think this something. Yeah, I think that's okay the way it is. Okay. So this is the final one. So okay. Thanks you guys. So that's it.